Welcome back, everybody, and thanks for joining in. I want to say thanks to particularly to Nate and Bill last week for helping me out through all my technical challenges with the audio and that sort of a thing. It's a little bit of a challenge, but glad everybody participated. We had I think close to another 20 people online, and so it's moving along really pretty well. I finally got out the reconstructed the meeting from last week and put it made a recording of it, and so now it's posted on the website. So last week and the week before can be downloaded and launched and followed in order to be able to get a sense of everything that basically had happened. So this is the agenda for this week, pretty much the same as last time. The topics that we're going to be covering today are customer relationship and channels, but I'll just do a quick review of what we talked about last week. I started out with just basically a quick overview of what the plan is basically all about, how it actually operates, and the way it's going to be going all along the week. Noted that I send everybody back to the website, and each week I'm going to be updating the site so that any information that from previous weeks will be readily available. Hopefully, I'll be able to get it up within the next 24 hours. But like I said, this past week had some difficulty in terms of reconstructing everything. So it really didn't wind up getting put out there until yesterday. We covered that. We covered the basics of the plan. The biggest thing, one of the key things was a review of the frequently asked questions. So I kind of walked through those and talked about just what are the kinds of things that people keep on asking about the contest. And again, all of that is on the website in the overall reporting. Emphasized the way it's going to be judged, and again, that'll be out there on the website. The biggest thing was I keep on emphasizing is that the biggest weight in terms of who wins is going to be community voting. So we walked through and talked about the business model canvas, what we're actually using in terms of what's going to be shared. Of what's being shared, and so we talked about the 9 points that are on the business model canvas, and the first two that we talked about last week were customer segments and value propositions. And we took the time to actually try to go through each one, giving some detail. You can see on the and we used Project Impact and the CUC as the example. And you can see on the screen there that what was actually put together in terms of the customer jobs, the pains, the gains, and then how all of that information kind of goes into the way we made some decisions in terms of how the center operates. And hopefully that gave a good example of how to use that tool in order to be able to get a better sense of your customers and the relationship that you want to develop with them, and how you actually want to use that in order to be able to market more effectively. Then Bill took some time and actually walked through a bit of the Strive On app, gave some ideas in terms of how that works, gave some examples, especially of a business that's out on the West Coast, to give everybody a feel for how the product can be used in order to be able to promote your businesses. And he put together a schedule in terms of a calendar so that anyone who wants to be able to talk with Bill one-on-one can schedule time for that appointment. And he'll also turn around and schedule group meetings in order to be able to bring some people up to date. So Bill, is that a pretty fair assessment of what you said last week?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't have quite all that done yet. I've actually created a video of what we covered last week. And in the next day or two, I do have the scheduling thing up so you guys can make appointments. I'm going to be adding to it. Right now, it's just on Wednesday evenings, but I'm going to add some more time to that. So after tonight's meeting, by sometime tomorrow, I'll put together a whole set of links and so on, James, and then you can send it out to everybody or put it on the website.
Very cool. Okay. So real quick, okay, so we're doing a quick overview of the last meeting. This week's topics are going to be customer relationship and channels. But before stepping off into that, are there any questions from last week? Anything that that we might be able to address, talk about, clarify? I'm going to assume in the silence that the answer is no for right now. I was given some good advice in terms of slowing down and giving people an opportunity to be able to process some of the information and ask some questions. So let me know if I need to, again, pause and recover some things if I go too quickly. So customer relationship, basically, this is the tool that helps us try to understand who our customers really are and what kind of relationship we want to have with them, but also that they want to have with us. And that's really important because those of you who know me say that I say all the time that all business isn't good business. There are some things that customers are going to demand of us that we're just not going to provide. Or there's some communication that needs to happen in order for the relationship to work really well. The other piece of that is that we definitely have to think through how we want to be able to connect with, build relationships with, excuse me, listen to, and actually grow those businesses. The channels is going to look at how we market and sell and support our customers. So I want you to note that you'll get a sense of what the strategy is, but the strategy for your customer relationships and your channels, just remember that it'll change over time. As you learn more about your customers, as your customers base expands, that will actually start to adapt and change as you're moving along through there. So customer relationships. One of the key things that we want to be able to do is when we're thinking about these customers and what we want to try to accomplish with them, we're really looking to understand how to acquire, how to retain, and how to upsell the customers that we have. And it's also about how to get referrals and testimonials from them. We want to clarify the type of relationship, like I said, that we want to have with them, and that the customer's voice in what kind, make sure that the customer is having a voice in what kind of relationship they want to have with us. So they'll turn around and give us input that'll help us understand more in terms of what it is that we want to try to build with them. So acquiring is where do we find them, how to close them. Now, if you think about what we did last week with your customer segments, and we started talking about the jobs or the things that our customers are identifying that they want to try to accomplish, that starts to tell us a whole lot in terms of what's important to them, what they really value, so that we can be thinking in terms of, okay, so what's the messaging? How are we actually going to find them in the places where they get their information, where they frequent, how are we going to be in the places where our customers are so that we can turn around and connect with them? And then what do we understand in terms of what's important to them, so that we can actually speak to them in a way that'll cause them to want to write a check. Key thing for me becomes spending some time and really getting a sense of what's the right location. I've had a number of people come to me initially, and the way they had started out trying to acquire customers was putting flyers on windshields of cars in parking lots. And they're a little surprised that they spent, a couple of $100s on flyers and got no responses. The other thing for them to consider too is, it's like, I don't know about you, but if I come outside and I've got a flyer sticking on my windshield, I'm not usually very happy. I'm really pretty cranky about it. So you want to be thinking in terms of what's the wisest ways. But you might turn around and think in terms of things that are going to be coming up, like events and activities, places where the people that you want to have as your customer would frequent. And if this is a place where you can find them, meet them, and talk to them. Once you start thinking about how you're going to acquire these customers, one of the big things is, how are we going to retain them? How are we going to keep them? Okay, what did they like about the service that I provided, and what didn't they like? And how do I know that that they like my product? Now, and again, keep thinking in terms of, you have different customer segments and different situations in which or different ways that you're going to want to interact with and acquire and retain and work with those individual customers. Now, I'm going to pick on Jeff just a little bit because he's here, and we just got through doing an activity together last week. Jeff's business is a fishing guide, tourism, I guess, kind of business. Jeff and Jeremiah took me out fishing Friday. Now, again, he's got different customer segments. This would be the individual, in my particular case, I'm the old grandpa who just barely knows how to put bait on a hook, but might want to take my grandkids out fishing sometime, and I don't want to look like a knucklehead, and I don't want to not catch any fish. So we went out together, and I mean, it was absolutely a great experience. I just had the time of my life. It had literally been decades since the last time I went fishing. And again, not a fisherman of any kind at all. And I think the last time I went out fishing, I didn't catch any doggone. We went out, took me out on the boat. They showed me everything in terms of how to bait the hook, all these other things. We actually caught almost 40 fish. We threw about 30 of them back, kept 10. Jeff has filleted them, and as a matter of fact, I've got a cooler right here that I'm all excited about going home and getting something to eat. But it was a great time. Will he retain me as a customer? You're doggone right. And just like I'm telling you about this, pictures were all over my Facebook page. People were contacting me. They were laughing about it, having a good time with it. But am I referring them and talking about it? You doggone right I am. So you want to be thinking in terms of what is it that I'm going to be doing in terms of connecting and building relationships with my customers. Then you want to be thinking also in terms of, okay, so what did I learn so that I can upsell? So now that I've got the customer and they've come in, how might I go on and move them on to the next phase? How might I turn around and introduce them maybe to my basic service, my primary service? But then once I've got them as a customer, once they're hooked, once they're feeling really good about the service that I provided and the product I provided, now how do I look in terms of retaining them as a customer and possibly upselling them to the next more premium product and service that I've got? And again, the key thing that we want to be able to try to get out of this is referrals and testimonies that are going to allow us to be able to attract additional customers and actually get the word out about our business and how well we're doing. So does that make sense? Any questions about what we're really trying to accomplish here with this portion of the business, with this with these customer relationships?
James, I have a question coming from Anvo.
Okay.
She says, we have a value proposition that meets a customer segment. Have we validated this segment is realistic to our proposition? Is this a good observation in acquiring the customer?
Repeat the question again.
She said, we have a value proposition that meets a customer segment. Have we validated this segment is realistic to our proposition?
So I guess I would wonder, how have we validated this segment? Have we actually had a conversation with some existing and potential customers, and the assumptions that we made in terms of what matters to them and is important to them, that they confirmed it, that they proved that, yes, this is what matters to us. And
oh, yeah, go ahead.
Well, and I'm thinking in terms of and what we prioritized as we think this is most important. And it comes back to that old Covey thing, Stephen Covey thing. You want to know what's both urgent and important. Something can be important to a customer, but they're not going to react to it and move on it right away because it's not urgent. And so we really want to make sure that we're focusing in on the most important, what's most important to the customer, not just what we think is most important to them. So I'm not quite sure if that answers the question or not.
No, yeah, she said that you did. As a matter of fact, the follow up was, is this a good observation in acquiring the customer? Thanks. But she said with the Jeff example, that answered the question.
Excellent. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions out there? Okay.
I only put on there that the picture I liked is the picture he gave you, because it put a big smile on your face when you got it.
Yeah, you got to go to my Facebook page and take a look at that, and then link to Jeff's business, because it was just so much fun. Oh, and the very cool thing is that we're catching fish like crazy. And there are other fishermen out there in their boats, and they're not catching a thing. So they're watching what's going on over there. And when Jeff and Jeremiah moved to another spot on the lake, those individuals would go over, try to go back to the spot where we just were, and they still didn't catch any fish. And they were frustrated as all get out. That's a matter of again, the expertise of the business. I'm emphasizing that. And I'm probably making Jeff blush a little bit, but the reality of the situation is that that's what we want to be doing. We want to be proving that the service that we offer is really valuable and it's really better than our competition. So I want you to be thinking about the different kinds of relationships that we might have. Okay, transactional. A transactional one is, it could be a customer walking up to a kiosk or getting the product to get their product, or it could be like an ATM or a vending machine. But you want to be thinking in terms of, okay, so how is it that my customer gets my product? How do I get it to them, and how do we really want to interact with that customer? Okay. You might think that your business might be a self-service. So you may turn around and have like a website, like the CUC plan pitch deck page that we have, where members, they go in and they actually fill in their own information, and they'll hit submit, and then that information comes to us, and then from that we create a real quick, simple pitch deck in a PowerPoint and send it back to the member. So that's a self-service sort of activity. That leads to some other things that will interact with the customer, but that's one of the key, that's an example, I think, of a self-service. You might have a dedicated personal assistance. That would be a situation where it's in person, maybe face to face, and where someone's actually helping them through the sales process. So that might be the way that you interact with your customer. And then you might have community relationships. That would be similar to what we do at the CUC, encouraging intentional diversity and collaboration, where the value is connecting with other like-minded people. So, you know, that might be an example of one of the ways that your business works. Co-creation. You may have a business where, like on a website, you're actually putting some things together. The customer service, the customer experience is being created by both the business and the users. So now you might turn around and be actually having the customer being involved in terms of putting some things together. And that's how the interaction happens with your business. An example of that model could be YouTube, because YouTube provides the technology in the relationship, but in the channel, but the users actually provide the content. So any thoughts, questions about those different types of customer relationships? And is there anybody who has a relationship with their customers that you don't feel like is being described here at this particular point? Okay,
Anybody have, okay, nothing?
we good?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I've got a comment right here in the at the center here. Go ahead.
I believe dedicated personal assistant, those
So the comment is that for her business, a dedicated personal assistant would be ideal for that business right now. Why do you think that?
because I'm trying to wear all the hats, I don't want to delegate. Delegate, thinking that I can everyone in my business or on my business.
Okay, so you're thinking that, well, you're also thinking in terms of you would like to be able to have someone working for you that's doing that personal interaction with your customer. So yours is a retail business, right?
And that's in both ways. That's somebody right there in person.
Uh-huh.
Hey, look at the pen, come over here to this thing. And also a personal assistant that is helping me post my or my Facebook channel.
What's being discussed here is retail, and the whole idea of the dedicated personal assistance is very much the kind of customer relationship you have in your business, but you're also thinking in terms of you want to be thinking in terms of who you want to hire and the kinds of things that they'll be doing in terms of providing that additional service. Yep, absolutely. Okay, so this is the customer checklist. So once again, it's kind of a little bit of a handout. You want to take a few minutes to give you an opportunity to just make some notes for yourself and think in terms of, okay, so this is the product that I can actually make available to my customers. Now, once again, these checklists are available to you on the website. So you can go to our website, you can download the checklist and use it. But the reality is it's really simple. So even if you're just here and you just want to jot these down on a note paper and just start thinking in terms of, okay, so what are the things that I would want to be doing in terms of my customer relationship? And ask yourself, based again, going back and taking a look at what you put together for your customer segment and your value proposition, what did you come up with in terms of how does my customer want to interact with me? How does this customer segment want to interact? Do they want to be, have a personal assistant? Do they want to be able to do something indirectly, like online, and not have a one-on-one interaction? But you want to be thinking in terms of that very clearly. Then you want to be thinking, how do we want to interact with the customer? Do I want to be the person who has to be in there face-to-face with them? Is that the way we want the relationship, or do I want it to be a little more distant? Are there things in terms of customer follow-up and those sorts of things? I'll give a real quick example. When I started my business, the Summers Group, I turned around and was working with a client, and we had agreed on the services that were going to be provided and the interaction and that sort of a thing. And the interaction went well. Mine was a consulting business. When I went back and looked at the amount of time that I spent interacting with that client, I actually wound up making only about $5 an hour. It was not the way my business is supposed to go forward. So in my particular case right there, the interactions with my client had to be shifted, that there'd be some basic face-to-face one-on-one that was part of the package deal. But after a certain amount, I'd have to charge for those additional times that we would interact. So just a simple example of something. Nate, were you about to present a question?
Yeah, I have one from Dwayne Walker. Says, sticking with the gym example, do they market their services a la carte or as a package deal? Did they let the customer desires or demand to determine what they offer? Discuss some ways to determine how we get customer interaction feedback. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, once again, you want to make sure that you're doing your customer discovery, right? So if you're thinking that my customer wants, and I'll just use the Business Development Center as an example for this, okay? Couple of different things. One, customers had told us that they wanted to use the center and they wanted a series of walk-up computers so that they could come in, quickly use the computers, maybe Google search and that sort of a thing, and then dash back out. So we actually spent money and set up computers and walk-up stations for the individual customers. After 4 years, no one actually uses that. I mean, we got a couple of them now that people can walk up to, but they almost are never used. That's not what the customers actually really wanted. The other thing, another example from the center, was the working with individuals and their fundamental business plans and trying to walk them through, very much like we're doing now, through a number of steps. Some customers really wanted that as part of the relationship. Others just really wanted to be able to go to the website and enter their information. I'm saying all of this because you really want to turn around and have that conversation and find out what those customers are asking for. But then you want to turn around and come back and make sure that what they're asking for is going to be cost effective for you. If it's going to spend so much of your time that you wind up making $5 an hour, that's a bad deal. May sound wonderful to them, but it's not a service that you're going to want to offer because you'll go broke in the process. Nate, am I answering this question?
I believe so.
Yeah, you answered my question.
Thanks, Dwayne.
I have another one from Elizabeth Coleman.
Okay.
Is it a thing for businesses to have most or all of these different relationship types?
Oh, no, you probably want to have, try to think in terms of which of these works best for you. So just like young woman here who was in the retail business, hers is very much in terms of dedicated personal assistance. That's the way she wants to run her business. And that may be the only type that she has, or she may turn around and offer some other additional ones, but you don't have to have all of these. You also want to be giving some thought to how you're going to support the customer. So now, what am I going to do in terms of follow-up? What am I going to be doing in terms of making sure that the experience was great? I'm going to pick on Jeff again, okay, because their follow-up with me was, one, they got permission to be able to use the photos that they had taken and the video that was taken. But if I hadn't wanted it to be shared, they would have just given me my copies so that I would have them for my enjoyment and my memory. That's support. That's the kind of thing that's like, okay, but there's an expense associated with that, but that's part of the way that the relationship and the experience is baked in to the business. And that is, once again, one of the reasons why a customer may come back, or a customer may come back with other people, or the customer may refer the business because it was such a great experience. The other part of it too is there might be the opportunity to provide some additional add-ons. You might turn around and maybe have something that you're going to send to the customer, a follow-up to make sure that the experience was fun and that sort of thing, and ask for suggestions in terms of how to make the experience better. You may turn around, and this is a perfect opportunity to be able to start thinking in terms of upselling. Again, picking on Jeff's business, that experience was great, but in the winter, I may turn around and be a candidate that wants to tap into one of his other services, which is training online, and learn some things while I can't necessarily go out and fish, but in the winter, but I could be learning some additional skills so that when I go back out in the spring and in the summer, that now I'm even more knowledgeable than I was before, and I'm getting more fun out of the experience. If there aren't any more questions right now.
So if I understand. for
Okay, there's one
example-
question here. I'm sorry, go ahead.
For example, if upselling,
Mm-hmm.
additional, what can I do? Like, what can you additional the experience, right? So if I hear you right, you say, okay, we have a raffle for free perk.
Uh-huh.
Um,
The question is about upselling, but go ahead.
upselling. So, it's upselling, is this in the same category? Right? We're doing a fashion show.
Uh-huh.
Is that upselling? People that suppose people fashion and they want to purchase.
Okay, so
That's the same
a
thing?
fashion show, the question is like, would a fashion show be an example of upselling? I would say that the opportunity to upsell could be in that situation, okay? So you could have a fashion show that, for example, there's a certain fee just to come to the fashion show. Then you could turn around, and now that you're there, you could turn around and have extra offerings that could be built on. So you may turn around, I came to the fashion show, it was a great experience, had a wonderful lunch, met some people, and saw some beautiful product. Then all of that, but now I turned around and I got the opportunity to purchase some beautiful product at great prices, right? Or the old, when I was with Whirlpool, we had a business that we were testing out called Inspired Chef. The chef would come to your home and prepare a meal, and your friends would be there with you and those sorts of things. And then we would talk about the meal, preparing the meal, and then they would talk about the products that were used to prepare the meal, the cooking utensils, all of those things. And then the upsell very much was now people purchasing those utensils and that sort of a thing. And the opportunity to turn around and get a discount if you hosted a show at your home and that sort of a thing. So that would be an example, I think, of a type of an upsell. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I hear you say that, I think, okay, a one-on-one shopping.
Okay, she's thinking of looking at this as a one-on-one shopping experience, and obviously, because you're in retail, absolutely.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna take about 10 minutes right now for you to be able to jot down your thoughts and how this might apply to your business and any additional questions that you might have.
All right, James,
Good?
I'm back here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's see if I can unfreeze my screen. Okay. Bill, did you want to take a little bit of time to share some more information about Strive On?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. I have some things ready.
You need to share the screen?
Yes, let me see. I think I can do that too. Okay, so can everybody see my screen? Can you hear me?
I can see it.
So this week, after last week, we had just a brief introduction to the app and how to use it. I've created a video for that too, which I'll be posting to YouTube, and I'll send out that link. So this week, we're going to talk about how you create your story in the app and what are effective ways to do and things to think about while you're telling your story. This is going to overlap a lot with some of the topics that James has been talking about, and that we're going to be talking about in the future. So these are good things to think about anyway. And as you're going through and doing the exercises that are being laid out here and filling out some of the worksheets that you're using, you can think about how does that fit into your story, the story of your business, your own personal story, things that customers and potential customers are interested in hearing, right? So this is kind of good things to be thinking about overall for using the app and for using your general marketing and your general social media content creation. Okay, so some of the key points to think about. And if you think about, I hope everybody got a chance to review that example that we saw last week. So in thinking about that and thinking about your business, right? Think about these questions. Why did you decide to start a business? People have a lot of different reasons for starting a business. Sometimes it's just a dream they've had for a long time. Sometimes people start a business because they just set out to solve one specific problem that they had, and then they found out other people had the same problem. And so they can help them solve their problems, and pretty soon you got a business, right? Sometimes people just have an expertise in a certain area. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine just last night that I haven't talked to for a few years, since before COVID started actually, and found out that she's been doing baking on the side, and she's been started just in the last month or two. She's been doing it for a while for friends and family, but just in the last month or two, started going to a local farmer's market, and it's just blown up on her. She's gone through I think she said like in the last 6 weeks, she's baking these homemade sourdough breads, and she's got different flavors. So she's making really interesting things like pepperoni pizza sourdough bread. She's making a muffaletta sandwich sourdough, which is is like an Italian sandwich that has olives and salami and some different things in it. And so she has about 8 or 9 of these different breads that she's been making. She's gone through, she kind of lost track, but she knows she's used up a case of 300 bread bags. And she just started out doing this for friends and family. And now she's like made 300 loaves of bread in the last 5 or 6 weeks, just at home in her oven and selling it at the local farmer's market. So people end up sometimes not even deciding to start a business. It just happens, right? So think about that. Sometimes it's an interesting story, and people, you want to use that to your advantage, right? People can make a connection to it because maybe they feel the same way about certain things. So is there something that you've done in your past that gives you some expertise in this area, whether it's a job experience that you've had or some education or a hobby? Like I was telling you about my friend Michelle, she started out as a hobby, and then all of a sudden she's got a business, right? Is it a family business? Sometimes, you learn from relatives. Sometimes your parents had a business. Sometimes an uncle, you work in a business. That's always, people like to see that. They like to see second generation, third generation businesses. It's not always the case, but if it is, use that to your advantage. What stage are you at in your business? That's part of your story as well, right? If you're a startup, you have certain things that you can tout. Maybe you're being innovative, having some new ways to do things, offering new solutions. By the same token, if you've been around a few years, tout your experience, right? That's what you want to promote, that we're established, we have experience in this area, and we'll help you solve your problems, right? So this next one is kind of interesting. This concept, so there's this woman who created this, Wendy Kennedy is her name. She has the Wendy Kennedy Institute. And she developed this as a way to do quick innovation, largely in the fields of technology and programming, in fact, computer technology and general technology. She has these 3 questions. Now, if you can answer these 3 questions, it takes you from like the back of the napkin kind of idea to maybe you can actually launch and do some fundraising, get some funding. The questions are, so what, who cares, and why you? These questions, actually, I find they apply to a broad range of things, not just technology. But more importantly, it's a way to help you think about your story, right? So if you can answer these questions, so I have a link to her website there. Here's her website, and here's what she says about it. So what? So that means, what's your idea? What's the problem you're trying to solve? Where does that idea fit in the marketplace, right? Who cares? So that's kind of defining who's your customer, who are you going to market this to, right? What's your path to market? Or is it going to be a storefront? Is it, how are you going to deliver your products? Path to market really is how are you going to start your business, but you can adapt this to think about it in terms of how are you going to deliver the product, right? And where's the money? So is this something that really people are willing to pay for? Have you done your customer discovery and talked to people? The last one is, why you? Well, what's your competitive advantage? James gave the example of going fishing. Well, his experience, right, was obviously a competitive advantage because he was catching fish and nobody else was, right? So can you execute? Again, yes, there was good execution there, right? And what's your value proposition? So these 3 questions make you think about not only the things you're doing in your business, but it can help you pull together your story when you think about, well, who's on the other side of these questions, right? So what, who cares, and why you? There's things that you want to actually tell the customers. Wendy Kennedy uses it to tell investors, but you want your customers to know some of these things as well, right? Tell your story in the context of solving a problem or filling a need. So what is it? That may be why you started your business, right? Maybe it isn't, but you're still, at the end of the day, customers all have things they want. They have things they have to do. They have things they want to do. You're going to fill some need or some desire, right? Or you're going to solve some problem for them. So how are you doing that? Tell your story. Why is it important to you? Maybe you have a passion for helping people. Maybe you have, a real interest in whatever it is you're doing. I mean, obviously you're starting a business, right? But how deep does that interest run? Tell your story so that people can relate to it. At the same time, then you'll develop, why is your business important to the customer and why is it important to the community? That's something you're going to really want to tell, because in this, when we get to the business plan competition, right, that's one of the bigger criteria is this needed in the community? Does the community want this product or service? And why is your business going to be important to the community? And then lastly, how is your business different than the competitors? How is your product or service different? Is it better? Does it have unique attributes? Are you providing a product or a service that is not offered at all? Is it maybe you have 1-day service where other businesses maybe offer only 2 or 3-day service? How is yours different? How does your value proposition meet the customer's expectations better than your competitors? So then how we're going to do that is we're going to take these pieces that you're going to build, right? your bits of your story as you develop the worksheets and these other exercises you have to do. And we're going to put it into the Strive on mobile app in several ways. You can use text, which is just a plain description. Excuse me a minute. So you can just have a description of your business. You can use bullet points, lists, tell your story just in words, right? How you got started, why you got started, who you're serving, and why you're better than your competitors. We can put, if you have websites, if you have different places on the internet, whether it's even social media, we can put links to your Facebook page right in the app. You know, don't reinvent the wheel. If you have some of these assets developed, let's use those and put the links, especially if you have a website where, say, a customer could place an order. We're going to want to have that link in the app, right? Images are important in telling a story. So show what your product is. Show a satisfied customer. Show pictures of James out there on the lake fishing, right? Having a great time. There you go. I mean, that's your testimonial. That's in one image. You can say paragraphs. You can say oodles and oodles, because here's the proof. Here's the satisfied customer. Here's your testimonial, right? Maybe you want to have just an audio file. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can just record it using your phone, make an MP3 file, and we can upload that, and the customer then can hear you tell your story, right? If you have video, or if you don't, you're going to want to, and we can post it on YouTube on your own channel. You create your own YouTube channel, and then we simply link to it in the app so people can view it real easy in the app. They don't have to search for it or anything. If they're using the app, they see your business, they can watch your video. Simple as that. So how you use these things is use them, think about what part of the story are you trying to tell, right? You're going to find that some parts of the story lend themselves to just a text, a quick paragraph or two. We're not writing a book. Don't think this is some big writing exercise. It is not that. It's keeping it simple. It's keeping it short. You know how it is when you use a mobile app, right? You're not in there for an hour. You're looking something up. You want to see a quick summary. So, 1 or 2 paragraphs, that's about it. Keep it simple, keep it sweet. Same again with links. That's going to tell a certain part of the story. Maybe it's where a customer could place an order. Maybe it's where they could look up more information about your product. Images, again, are also going to tell part of the story, because when a person actually gets to see what it is or see the result of what you've done, that can close the sale right there. And then audio and video are pretty obvious, right? I mean, everybody uses that these days. It's great in mobile. It's easy to do. And you're going to want to develop these assets for other marketing, not just for this app. So this is all going to be good for you in the long run to do. We'll go through and do some of this as we go along here in the next few weeks. And what we'll do is I'm going to have a form online that will have these areas. Submit your text, submit links, submit your images, and then you can just upload it. You'll fill out this form online, and then I'll create it all into the app for you. You don't have to worry about that. So with that, we'll get you built out into the app, and you'll be able to tell your story, and you'll be able to reach out to customers. The last thing I'll mention is that we may have some ways. I have some ways in the app that you can do this. I'm not sure how far we're going to go. A little bit depends on time. But we may have some ways that you would be able to put out to the community and ask them a question and get feedback right through this app. So we'll be talking about that in the next couple of weeks as that comes up. So does anyone have any questions?
Yes, Bill.
Mhm.
Elizabeth Coleman says, can you give an example of answers for where does your business fit and where's the money?
So back to the so what, who cares, and why you. So where does your business fit, right? Where does your idea fit? So that's kind of like, maybe there's 2, 3, 4 other products out there. Maybe let's say you're selling cars, right? And so maybe there's a car dealer that has small, little compact, really fuel efficient cars, right? And then there's another dealer that has trucks or big like Suburbans and really big vehicles, right? But nobody's in the middle. So where does your idea fit in? How does it solve that problem? What part of the market does it address? Right? And what was the other one? Where's the money? That is, so if just for you to think about it, maybe it's not part of your personal story, but it's for you to think about. And so if there is this market opportunity, can you actually make any money at it? Right. And so it's not necessarily part of your story, but it's kind of always in the background there, right? Because everything you're doing should drive towards solving some problem and getting paid for that. Right? You're not in business to give things away. Okay, does that make sense? Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Anything else?
Hey, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one thing to think about. Some of the folks online here are involved have property. They are landlords, and from the standpoint of telling the story of to members of the competition of this is the space that I have available to you, and these are all the advantages that your business would gain by leasing space from me, I think is an important story that they would want to tell.
Well, absolutely.
Also, those businesses out there that provide services. I didn't mention it earlier, but here at the center, after we ended the meeting, we kind of hung out for a little while, and we actually wound up here until 9 o'clock. And it was all good. But during the course of it, one of the folks, Joe, with Importing Joe, talked about the fact that he had just landed an opportunity to have his product distributed at Myers.
Nice.
So to be able to tell that story and that kind of excitement, one, would be great for his business to tell the story. But the other part of it too was for others here to be able, who might be have a product that they would like to get into a major retailer, to learn from that.
Right.
One other thing that happened was one of the folks here was looking for an insurance provider for liability insurance for their business. And the ones that they had talked to hadn't been able to provide that service. But Joe had one that he'd been working with, and then the other member turns around and now is reaching out to that source to be able to solve a problem that they have in their business that another member had already found a solution for. So I'm just trying to connect a couple of different things in terms of ways that, one, we can use the app to be able to tell our stories, but also how we can help each other in terms of enhancing our businesses.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things there, James, and let me address those one at a time. So your first example about the landlords and people having property that is available, that's a great example, a great use of the app. So there, really, you want to focus on the details, and it may be some things that aren't necessarily apparent to start with, but you may want to do so. You want to create a listing, right? And what are the things that are in a property listing? Well, in a business property listing, right? Things that are important are not only just the square footage and what the rate per square foot is and different terms of the lease, that's important. But when somebody's looking, if you want to catch their attention, right, maybe your location is your advantage. What's the traffic count past that location in a day? What other business are around you that could be complementary? What's the competitive advantage? And that becomes part of your story. So in that case, maybe you're telling the story of that location or that building. Maybe it has multiple units available. Maybe it has some occupied already. So what's the story of that building? Is it a historic building or something? Is there something special and unique about it? Does it have easy access? All those things, right? All those details that make up the story of the building, that's what you want to put in. As far as the last thing you mentioned, James, how, we talked about, I think you and I talked about, and we can revisit this. We talked about having a news feed kind of thing in the app, having a category for that where we could post kind of what's happening and keep folks up to date. Maybe that kind of a category or something else we could put in there for resources. And we could talk about that a little more if you want, but that's a possibility too. We could get that going. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions on that?
Well, I just want to comment that I like that idea a lot, but I'd like to hear from the folks who are going to be posting, and not necessarily immediately now, but of course, there's any ideas, the things that they would like to make sure that we try to incorporate so that they can tell the stories of their business.
Yes.
Bill, there's
Yes.
a question from Dwayne Walker. He wants to know, what is the time frame for submitting information for Strive On? And he said, I assume that you will be gathering information over the next few weeks.
That's correct. I'm going to get that form done. I started working on it. It's just not quite ready. I kind of ran into a snag. I was going to use to be honest with you, I was going to use a Google form. That requires everybody to have a Gmail address. And I don't know if everybody does or if that would be a problem. So I'm actually going to do it a different way. And I hope to have that done by the end of this week. Should be, hopefully I'd like to have it done tomorrow actually. And we can start collecting some of this information right away. I think that over the course, especially of the next 2 weeks or so, as you start doing some of these other worksheets and as we're discussing the topics here in this session on the Tuesdays, your story is you'll see how your story it will evolve and kind of develop naturally. And then, so we'll look to collect the information over the course of the next couple of weeks, and then I'll just get it in there just as fast as I can.
Another
Please.
comment that I have is we've got some folks on the line that have some resources that probably we might want to make sure are incorporated into the app in some way so that we can leverage them. For example, I'm thinking immediately Ivy Tech has an entrepreneurship program that we could tap into kind of significant. SCORE and SBDC, they're doing some things that I think might be useful. I don't know how much on the app that might be, but just when you start thinking in terms of newsfeed and resources to tap into, to talk about. I know everybody who is into food preparation and shared commercial kitchens, maybe one of the things that we'll want to incorporate into the app is the influencers. I'm going to be posting those online. Actually, I commit that this evening, by this evening, if you go to the website, you'll see the list of the contact information for the influencers that have basically said it's okay to reach out to them and talk to them. But you start thinking in terms of Mark McDonald and his LaSalle Grill and catering business. He's offered to be able to provide coaching and advice and support and even some business opportunities for some of our people who are in the food industry. So maybe there are some things like that that would also be shared. Our lead sponsor for this whole activity has become the city of South Bend. I mean, I was blown away. I had a meeting with the city and Mayor Mueller. He just turned around, and as soon as we started talking about it, he just said, I want to be the lead sponsor and I want to be lead sponsor for the next 3 years. Boom. That's one of the reasons why this is happening. He did the same doggone thing when we were trying to get the center started. I was having a little challenges with some of the bureaucracy within working with the city. and I bet some of y'all know what I'm talking about. And he popped his head in the door and basically said, "How's it going?" And I said, not so well. And he said, "Oh no, we're going to do this." And all of a sudden the conversation shifted and changed. We started moving forward. I'm just saying that there are resources in the community that we might want to find a way to be able to either they make themselves available on the app, or we tell the story that this is a resource that might be able to tap into and create a link. Bill, we'll probably talk about the best way to be able to do that. But anybody out there who has thoughts in terms of how to do it better, please let me know.
Yes, I think we should. I agree, James, and I think we can do it both ways. I think there's a place for just resources that everybody can share resources. And like, for example, in the food industry, and sometimes this stuff is hard to find. And I know this, I've been trying to look up some restaurant codes myself. I'm actually working with a gentleman here in my area that is opening a pizza place. And so I'm trying to help him get open. And, some of the food codes, I don't know about Indiana, but Wisconsin, they've kind of made a mess out of it, to be honest with you. And you would think it all would be available online, but I'm having trouble finding. I find bits and pieces, but so that kind of things, people find things that could help other people out. I mean, certainly don't give away your secret sauce or anything, okay? But some of these basic things we can have, we can just have maybe 1 or 2 tiles even in a category that is just a list of links, how to find things, right? If you want to do that. But the sponsors and your influencers and, yeah, if an insurance agent wants to, look at getting some business, then yeah, we can have them listed in the app, right? If a bank wants to give some financing, we'll list them in the app. So you and I can talk about that a little more this week, James, okay?
Sounds good. Okay.
I will give you the screen back.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So thanks, Bill. I mean, as always, I got to tell you, I'm excited about this whole idea of using the app in order to be able to get the word out into the community, but most importantly, so that the people in the community are the ones who are voting. People in the community are the ones who are picking the winner. I don't want this to be a top-down thing, okay? I want this to be the community being engaged, and it's an experiment. We'll see how it works, but I think it's the right way for us to be able to be doing this stuff. Okay. So now we're going to start talking about channels. And channels, let me go back here for a second. Okay. When we get into channels, we really want to start. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I jump into channels, okay. What you got?
Like,
Okay.
you go notifications.
Let's come back afterwards and we'll go over it. Okay. First of all, are there any questions that have come up that still need to be answered after this last bit of information we shared? Nate, do you feel like we're good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. So we start thinking in terms of it's like channels and how are the ways that we're going to actually be marketing our business, and what is it that we're going to be doing in terms of getting the word out. Think again in terms of what we did early on in terms of our customer segments, and in doing that, we got a good sense of, okay, so what is it our customers want? And where do they get their information? And where do they hang out? and what's important to them. All of that starts to inform how we start thinking in terms of how we want to market to each other or to the customers. How are we going to go about creating some awareness? How are we going to go about generating leads? Okay. A couple of different things that I think about almost immediately is being aware of the upcoming activities and things that are going to be happening in the community. Okay. Are there events? I would absolutely go to the South Bend, the website that basically says what's happening in South Bend. Okay. And think in terms of these are the things that are going to be going on and developing throughout the community. Okay. Parks and venues got all kinds of things that happen all through the summer, right? Different organizations have all kinds of activities, events that happen all during, year round, but particularly during right now. So I would be thinking very much in terms of what's coming up, and is this an opportunity for me to be able to be out there, promote myself? Am I going to be out there wearing a shirt that says, Business Development Center, CUC? I mean, how am I going to get out there and get in front of the people that I know from my customer discovery that this is where those people are and these are the people that I want to be communicating to? And how am I going to be telling my story in a way that is going to be they're going to be responsive to it? I have a personal project that I'm working on right now that is working with autistic kids, and basically the things that we want to do with them and the activities that we want to provide that we know are going to be important. So now we're taking a look very specifically in terms of how the messaging is going to be done, how we're actually going to be reaching out to them, where we're going to be, how do we connect, and those sorts of things. Strangely enough, this morning in church, a gentleman stopped me and he basically said, James, I heard this is what you do and this is what you had done with this other group, and would you be willing to be able to do some stuff with us? And the answer, of course, was yes, but that just came from an activity that I had done actually 2 years ago at a particular program for a group of kids that I care about, that I'm concerned about. So I just want to emphasize that in terms of thinking through and using what you're developing at this particular point, your customer segments, the individual business value propositions for each of those segments, and where those customers would be and how you might be able to talk to them, and even the way that you frame your messaging to be able to connect to them and be relevant to them is really important. So I'm gonna, before I move to the next thing, any questions? Is there anything that I said that's confusing that I can clear up? Any questions about how we need to take what we've been doing up to this point and connecting it to our marketing strategies? Okay. Same thing comes with sales, okay? Now that I've found these people, now that I've done my stuff and I discovered that, hey, they're hanging out on Facebook, or they're hanging out on Twitter, or they're going to be at the King Day celebration in January, where the vendors are going to be and people are going to be, and I need to be there in order to be able to tell the story. They're going to be at this event that's going to be at Howard Park, or this event that's going to be at the Charles Black Center, or the Charles Martin Center. Wherever something is going to be happening, I've already identified that this is where I need to be, and I've identified the way they want to be communicated to. What is it that I'm going to provide them? What is it that's going to work? Am I going to be hanging out in the parking lot putting a whole bunch of annoying flyers on people's windshields? Or am I going to be in some place talking to some people and sharing information with them? Am I going to be having a conversation that uses the language that they use when they talk about the issue that they care about, so that they consider me knowledgeable and in touch with them, so that now I can do some stuff and actually be relatable, so that we're going to be able to do something. At the end of the day, all I'm trying to do is just close the deal. I'm trying to turn around and I used to tell this to my sales and marketing class that I used to teach. The first thing I have to do is I got to make you like me. That's the very first thing I got to do, because when I walk in the door, you're turning around and you're looking at me and it's like, okay, so let me hide my wallet, right? But the reality of the situation is I want you to turn around and you see me coming through the door and it's like, oh, I like this guy. And you're going to be thinking in terms of, I like how he solves my problem. And I like the idea in terms of, how do I find a way to be able to do business with him? Those of you who are in consulting or any type of business like that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know perfectly well that the first thing people are thinking in terms of is like, this dude's going to try to sell me something, and I just got to figure out a good way to be able to say no. My first thing has to be, I have to make you feel comfortable that I want to try to understand what your problem is, and I'm going to help you solve your problem. And my approach, and it may not be your approach, but my approach basically is, I always try to find a way that I'm going to give you something of value for nothing. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to find a way to be able to solve a problem. Now, I'm not talking about I'm going to give away product for nothing. I'm saying that, and that might be the case. I might do a loss leader in order to be able to do that. But in my particular case, it's always been a matter of, you tell me a problem that you have, and I turn around and I introduce you to somebody that I know who can help solve your problem. The unconscious thing that always happens is that I just did you a favor, and quietly you're going to be looking for an opportunity to be able to do me a favor in return. Now I've just opened the door in order to be able to create the opportunity to be able to do a sale. Questions? Anything that I just said there that draws questions or wants more, you want more exploration? Okay. The other thing I want you thinking about is support. So the question starts to become, how am I going to get the product or service to you that I'm going to offer? Okay, so for years, the Summers Group, my whole thing was, after I started, when I left Whirlpool, Whirlpool was my first client. Major corporation, and then I did, you know, Kellogg and a few other big companies. I wasn't having the fun that I wanted to have in my own business, and I started looking at some other ways that I was going to be able to be doing some stuff, and then I wound up doing some other consulting for smaller businesses in the communities that I care about, and I was making money and enjoying what I was doing. But the key became is like, okay, so how am I going to deliver my services? So again, my clients at that particular point in time were small chambers of commerce, small economic development groups. So African American, Hispanic, Women Chamber of Commerce, and same thing, economic development groups. My primary customers were the executive directors, the bosses of those. And I stayed invisible in the background in terms of providing services, because that was the most efficient way. So nobody ever heard of the Summers Group, but those businesses kept coming back because I quietly provided the services that they need. And there were levels of service and support that I provided. I would put together presentations and just deliver them to them. I would put together presentations and deliver them to them and coach them on how to deliver them themselves. I would put together the presentations and then turn around and deliver them for them under their name. There were different ways that I actually provided the support, but the way I provided the support, once again, go back and take a look at your notes in terms of customer relationships. I provided the support in the way that they told me they wanted to receive the support. But I also turned around and I made conscious decisions in terms of the way you want to receive the support. I can't deliver that, and that's not what I'm going to do in my business, because it was either not cost effective and I wasn't going to be profitable enough, or the reality of the situation is like, I just didn't want to do that. So these are things that you want to be thinking through as you put this, as you start bringing that together. So before we move on further, let me give you a couple of minutes to digest that, because I do listen to instructions and I was told to slow down, give you time to think and process, and then and make comments. And then we can think in terms of how you want to put this information together. Let me give you a minute or two to think about any questions that you might want to ask. Nate, does it look like we're good?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So here's the handout and the things that I'd like you to take a few minutes to think about for your business as it relates to this topic, okay? How does our customer get their information? We're stepping back right now and we're thinking very seriously in terms of once again, that checklist. Am I on the right thing? I think I am. And then how do we use those information sources? So how do they get their information? Again, do they get it? Do they get all their information from Fox News or MSNBC or CNN or what? Do they turn around and they get all their information from the pastor of the church group they belong to? Do they get all their information from James over at Project Impact? Probably not. Do I get my information from the city? You know, how do they get their information so that I can be connected to them? How do we use those information sources, right? And then how are we actually going to handle all of that in terms of connecting that to the way that I'm going to market to them? Take a few minutes. Any questions, put them in the chat. I'll wander around here and chat with you here live, and we'll try to go from there. Okay, sound good?
James? Oh.
How we doing? I'm good.
Yeah, she have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
It's from Chan. How would you go about finding out where your customers get their information? Would surveys be a possibility?
Surveys are a possibility. Nothing beats face-to-face. The important thing is that when you're actually talking to somebody who is either an existing customer or a potential customer, that when you're face-to-face, you get the opportunity to ask deeper and more probing questions. Sometimes you can just tell by the way somebody rolls their eyes, or the way they just sit there and they start to ponder something, that that there's more underneath there, and you can probe. That's the secret sauce. That's the good stuff. That's what really tells you what people really care about. And so, yeah, surveys work, but talking to people is absolutely the best way to be able to get information. Now, I'll give us as an example. The city thought when we opened the center that there were probably about 10 Black businesses in the community, okay? When we opened the center, we already had 70 lined up. Part of the challenge was that they didn't know how to find them. Well, and the way that they were going about finding them was that you had to be registered with the state of Indiana as a minority business enterprise, okay? And people like me turn around and it's like, I don't need to register with nobody to let you know I'm Black. So there's just stuff, okay? But then when you actually started talking to people and you started figuring out, oh, this is what they really care about. This is what I thought would matter, but this is what really matters. That's when you really start to drill down and start to get a better understanding of what people really care about. You start to get that feeling in terms of, but I say when I talk to you that this is important, but the reality of the situation is like, this other thing is what I would write a check for today. Those are the subtle things that you miss when you do indirect kind of communication. And those are the things that you pick up on when you're sitting across from somebody who is either a customer or a prospective customer. The other thing I want to add to that is that if you're a startup or you're talking to somebody who would be a prospective customer, you always want to diffuse the whole thing that I just came and I'm sitting in front of you to sell you something. You like to be able to create the environment where I'm really just trying to explore something that I'm going to do. Maybe a new service, maybe a new product, maybe I'm about to start a business, and I just want to get a sense of, what do you think? Beyond that, oh yeah, that'd be a great idea, James. I think that's really wonderful. God bless you. Go do it. I just want to be supportive. But you'd never buy anything from me. To the person that turns around and says, oh, well, if I was looking at a business like that, this is what I'd be concerned about. That's a treasure chest of information. I hope that helps. Any other questions, Nate?
No.
Anything here? Okay. So the last thing is every week we want to do a drawing, a go deeper drawing, okay? It's not a big deal, it's just a little bit of fun. And it's a $50 gift certificate. Now, me just being me, I was kind of like, okay, so where should I get the gift card from, right? And so I was like, well, Office Depot or Staples, that sort of thing. And my wife turned around and said, you knucklehead, Myers. Okay. Myers got supplies, Myers got foods, Myers has got a bunch of different choices of things. Oh, and Joe just turned around and landed business with Myers to distribute his product. So at least this week, the gift card is going to be a $50 gift card from Myers. Now, shame on me. I did not get the information out to you guys fast enough. And while I did get a number of different names of folks who basically said they want their name in the drawing, I'm going to give it another day for everybody to turn around and just send me an email with your name, okay? And then we will put those into a hat, and we will and we'll draw a name, and I'll announce it at the next meeting. But when you provide your name and your contact info to me, I will immediately contact you and let you know how I can get you the card. And once again, just like everything that I'm doing here, I'm open to it, suggestions and improvements in terms of the way that this whole thing goes. Okay. Any questions, comments, thoughts before we close out?
Done? Dwayne?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I know there's someone asked a question about finding customers earlier. Another great way of finding customers, and I won't, this will just be a few minutes, but is whether you're a new business or you're opening or you're an existing business has been around, is to look online at your competitors in other states or other people offering services like those that you're offering, and find out who they're marketing to and what type of people do they actually show testimonials for, etc., on their websites or on their social media pages. And that's been a great way to find information. But I think what James said about having people, looking people eye to eye and finding out what they want is we actually started out by, before we even opened the store, we actually went out to a couple of community festivals and we offered our product. And when we were there, that's when we got a chance to offer it up, and people were, oohing and ahhing, but we were asking them who they bought from and what they liked and all those types of things. So just food for thought. I thought that was a great answer that you gave, James.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, by the way, Dwayne's business, what is it? Chicagoland Popcorn? Going to be coming to South Bend. How fast can we do this?
We're working on it. We're working on it.
The other thing too is like, let's tap into these resources. If any of you have mentors, coaches that can be providing support and information, you know, invite them to come and participate. Listen, ask them to, you know, or just suggest that they listen to or watch the recordings of the YouTube videos. Speed through the parts that don't matter and just hone in on the pieces that that do matter. Take a look at our website. Hopefully the information that we're putting out there is useful. But if there are things that we could add to it, let me know. I just want you to remember that the real goal here is intentional collaboration. We want to create an environment, a community where all of us, everybody is turning around and providing input that that just helps us grow and gives us opportunities to be able to do some positive things. I joined the Project Impact joined the South Bend, Mishawaka, Michiana Chamber of Commerce. And the reason we did that was each of your businesses, you're probably not, most of you are probably not in a position where you want to spend $500 a year to be a member of the chamber and then hope and pray maybe something good happens. So what we did was we bought a membership with the understanding that we can bring any of you at any time as guests to any events and activities they're having. So now we can bring you as our guest to network with businesses that you think will help grow and expand and meet the strategy that you put together to grow your business. Can also turn around and leverage the other resources that they provide in terms of like office space from time to time for meetings. Once again, we'll take a serious look at all the things that they offer, and you can talk to us in terms of ways that we can make those available for you through us so that it can help grow your business. Another thing that's coming up, not this Thursday, but a week from Thursday at 6 p.m., we're going to be hosting an activity here at the center that looks at transportation in the city of South Bend and ways that it needs to be changed and improved. I encourage anyone who is thinking about a business-related opportunity to get the message out. So for example, an alternative Uber, a neighborhood transportation session. One of the things that I'm really excited about is a business that's been identified that has a high-tech trail, not trail, I'm losing the sense. Not a bus, but what do you call those things that are running through the community? A trolley. Thank you. Boy, your old brain went dead. A high-tech railless trolley that would run from downtown South Bend down Lincoln Way all the way to the airport. The amount of business that would stimulate in the community that I'm most worried about is absolutely amazing. I would love for that conversation to happen. But also anybody who is thinking about a business that would benefit from that kind of transportation running through our community, and especially when people come into town and are visiting, going to the Notre Dame game or whatever else, and they decide to stick around another day to just explore the community and how that would draw business to your businesses. I would love for you to be able to be a part of the conversation, to express your voice and other ways, other ideas in terms of businesses that could be created that would stimulate or change or improve transportation in our community. So once again, that'll be live here. It'll be online. It'll be recorded. But I invite you and encourage you to participate.
James?
Any other last words?
Yes, Chad wants to know if you can give out your email again.
Yeah, my email address is james@tsgdiversity.com. james@tsgdiversity.com. That's T as in Tom, S as in Sam, G as in God, diversity.com. Okay. I want to thank everybody. You guys are wonderful. I appreciate you hanging in there with me. I appreciate you participating in this way. Invite other people to participate. Let everybody know that everybody is welcome. They can attend one meeting or no meetings or all the meetings. It doesn't really matter. We just want everybody to be connected. God bless all of you. Okay. Have a good evening. And we'll close out from here.
Hold on, yes, I put your address, your email address in the chat.
Appreciate that.
Bye, everybody. This was great, James. This is Mario with MET. Just want to let you know that was a great meeting, and there was a wealth of information.
Hey, thanks, my friend.
Have a good evening.
Take care, everybody.